Do not underestimate Utah. The Utes have not been their usual selves these last couple of years. They're just 13-12 in the last two seasons, including a 5-7 season in 2024. But they are still an elite contender. They are still one of the best home teams in the entire country, and they will bounce back in a big way in 2025. You take a look at last year, and really you take a look at 2023 as well. The issue for Utah has been quarterback. Cam Rising had so much talent, so much potential, but obviously could not stay healthy. And we never knew when Cam Rising was going to play. You know, he got hurt in that Rose Bowl at the end of the 2022 season, and the whole time it was, he could play this week, could play this week, could play, and we never knew. So Utah didn't really have consistent quarterback play. It was always a guessing game of who was going to be under center. And now, unfortunately for Cam Rising, I hate to see his college career, end the way it did, but Utah no longer has a quarterback question. Last year, 5-7, despite all of those quarterback questions, despite really a struggling offense, they had 5 losses by 1 possession. They started 4-0, were ranked 10th in the nation, and really could have been a 10-win team. They only lost by 8 to Arizona State on the road, the Arizona State team that won the Big 12. They only lost to 6 by TCU, 3 to Houston, only by 1 to BYU, only by 3 to Iowa State, who was the Big 12 runner-up. So some of the better teams in the conference, Utah still hung with, and they didn't really have much of an offense. Kyle Whittingham is entering his 21st year in Salt Lake City, and in the 20 years prior, he's 92-30 at home. Once again, Salt Lake City, one of the most difficult places to play in the nation, especially when Utah's good, and they will be good this year. Because you take a look at the offense, there is no more quarterback carousel. There is no more guessing game. The quarterback will be Devin Dampier from New Mexico. And someone's saying, Mexico? They're not very good. Well, Dampier was, right? He was. First team Mountain West selection last year. Threw for over 2,700 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions, so does have to cut down on his mistakes, but it's his mobility that makes him so dangerous. He rushed for over 1,100 yards and 19 touchdowns last year. 1,100 yards and 19 touchdowns last year. Did throw for nearly 3,000 yards. So again, if he cuts down on those interceptions, he's going to be just fine. The beauty of that is he also brings his offensive coordinator, Jason Beck, along with him. So Jason Beck leaves New Mexico to come to Utah with Devin Dampier. I think he's going to take a bigger step forward as a passer and going to remain just as dangerous as a runner. They add Wayshawn Parker in from Washington State, who rushed for over 700 yards last year. Wide receiver Ryan Davis transfers in from New Mexico, had over 1,000 yards for the Lobos these last 2 years. Tobias Merriweather has talent and potential, transferring in from California. Larry Simmons transfers in from Southern Miss. So some solid wide receivers to help out Dampier in the passing game, and the entire offensive line returns in what will be one of the best offensive lines in the entire country. So great protection up front, a mobile quarterback, solid wide receivers, solid running game. The offense is going to look drastically different than it has the last 2 years. As they can stay healthy, they're going to be dangerous. The defense, that's going to be dangerous at Utah. Morgan Scalley is, the coach in waiting. Whenever Whittingham steps down, it's going to be Scalley, and he is one of the best defensive minds in the game. 7 starters are back for Utah this year, including 3 of their top 4 tacklers. Last year, they only gave up 20.7 points per game, only 330 yards per game, and only 129 rushing yards per game. So this team, again, 5-7, so close to being better, and they had just a sliver of an offense, would have had a winning season. The defense doing everything they could to keep them in just about every single game. The defensive line has Logan Fano, had 6.5 tackles for a loss last year. Paul Fitzgerald also returning up front, so a solid defensive line. The linebacking core is really, really good. Their number 1 tackler from last season, Lander Barton, returns, had 72 tackles and 2 sacks. Lavani Damuni also returns at linebacker, and the secondary is really, really good. Their second leading tackler on the team last year, Tal Johnson, he returns. Smith Snowden had 2 interceptions last year. Elijah Davis had 2 interceptions last year. So you've got an experienced secondary, a really good linebacking core featuring your leading tackler from a year ago, a defensive line that's always stout and has always been stout against the run, and one of the best defensive minds coaching them up in Scalley. So this Utah team, again, if they can stay healthy, will do just fine. If you look at them the last 2 years, you wouldn't think so. But again, don't look at the last 2 years. They haven't been their normal selves. They're going to return to form in 2025. Take a look at the schedule. I'm actually going to tell you they start 3-0, and I think the toughest game, obviously, in that stretch is the road game at UCLA, an old Pac-12 game between these two. The first time that UCLA and Utah have met as a non-conference game since 2007. But here's the thing. I know Utah's got a lot of new pieces. I know it's on the road. I know Dampier, there's a lot of, unknown, especially from his passing ability. But I look at Nico Iamaleava, who wasn't really all that good at Tennessee last year, struggled against good defenses last year. Now, in his first start with UCLA, I expect him to come out here and torch this Utah defense? I don't think so. I think Utah actually owns the edge in every aspect of this game, except for home field advantage. And early in the year, the Rose Bowl really doesn't give much of an advantage to the Bruins. Definitely not early in the year, sometimes not ever. They're going to win this game against the Bruins. They're 1-0, and as we mentioned, 3-0 with wins over Cal Poly and Wyoming. Then you get into Big 12 play, and they've got some tough games here, but what I like the most about Utah's schedule is they get a lot of the big dogs at home. I mean, look at it. Texas Tech comes to Salt Lake City. Arizona State, Salt Lake City. Colorado, Salt Lake City. Kansas State, Salt Lake City. So, really favorable home slate for a team that, again, is 92-30 at home over the last 20 years. Starting with Texas Tech, this battle simply comes down to Utah's defense versus Texas Tech's offense. We know the Red Raiders have a very electric offense. Barron Morton's one of the best quarterbacks in this conference when he's healthy. That's going to be the key for the Red Raiders. So much hype surrounding Joey Maguire's squad, but it will all go away if they can't stay healthy. But they've got the number one transfer portal class in the country, talent at quarterback, talent at receiver. They really bolstered up that defense across the board. But I got a lot of people telling me that they're going to win this game, that Texas Tech's going to win this game, and I disagree. I believe Dampier's mobility can play that big of a role. I also believe in the home field advantage that much. Texas Tech has not been a good road team under Joey Maguire. They're 6-10 on the road under Maguire. And now you're coming into one of the most hostile environments in the country. Early in the year, potential top 25 matchup. I like Utah a lot. I think the offense, can actually hang with Texas Tech. I still think Texas Tech owns the offensive edge. I do. But I think Utah can hang with them. But at the end of the day, also, who has the defensive edge? It's Utah. Home field advantage. Utah. Win. Utah. They're 4-0. They're going to cruise past West Virginia, who I think will struggle quite a bit in the return of Rich Rodriguez. A trap game maybe on the road, sure, but they should get the job done, which means they're 5-0 heading into their bye week and a potential top 10 team. And that could set up a potential top 10 showdown against Arizona State. Two legitimate Big 12 title, two legitimate college football playoff contenders. Arizona State, again, last year it was a game for Utah where I felt like Utah really should have won. It was more like Utah beat themselves more than it was Arizona State beating Utah, right? And the Sun Devils deserve a lot of credit. Their defense was phenomenal. They did a great job. But Utah had so many opportunities in Arizona State territory to score, and they didn't. Whether it was turnover on downs, whether it was turnovers period, whether it was just being held to field goals. And that was the biggest thing. I think they got held to 4 field goals within the Arizona State 30-yard line. And they lost 27-19. So a lot of mistakes, a lot of missed opportunities for Utah in a game they should have won. And that was with a Utah team that was worse last year than they're obviously going to be this year. I think they're going to beat Arizona State at home off a bye. Again, home field advantage plays a big role. The week of rest plays a big role. Arizona State does lose a little bit of talent. I'm still very high on this team. Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson, Kanye Udo, 9 starters back on defense. I mean, this is a very good team and one that could challenge for another Big 12 title, but I don't think they have enough to win now in Salt Lake City in a game, again, where I feel like the Utah returners truly feel they should have beaten the Sun Devils. And just imagine what that could have done for the Big 12 and the conference as a whole last year. You beat Arizona State. Does Arizona State still go to the playoffs? Do they still go to, it could have been a ripple effect had Utah won that game early in the year. Instead, they did not, but they do get the revenge now. They're 6-0. Bottom line, 2 big home games for the Utes. They've won both of them. They're 6-0. Now they go on the road to BYU. Last year, a controversial ending between the Cougars and the Utes. BYU won that game 22-21. So you look at this game and you go, yeah, this is a revenge game for Utah, right? They were angry after what happened last year. It's the 103rd Holy War, big-time rivalry game, conference game, which adds an extra juice to it. They're going to come out and win this game, right? I'm going to say no. Look, BYU is going to take a step back this year. They're not going to be as good as people think they're going to be, and they're not going to be as good as they were last year, especially with the loss of Jake Retzlaff. But they do have a very good secondary. They have a very good linebacking core. And this is where I think some of the issues with Devin Dampier's passing could come into play. If he doesn't improve as a passer like we expect him to, or as much as he needs to, if BYU can contain him to the pocket, if they can contain him to and force him to win the game through the air, I think Utah struggles here. On the road, I know there's going to be a hefty amount of Utah fans in Provo as well, but this is a very tough game that is homecoming also for BYU. And again, where Utah's offense, I think, is going to struggle a little bit when BYU ultimately forces Dampier to win it through the passing game. I don't think he's going to be able to do that. He needs to have that mobility. BYU is going to take it away. The defense does their job. The offense not going to be as bad as people think, despite the loss of their quarterback. The Cougars get a big win at home and hand Utah their first loss of the season. They're 6-1. Still everything right in front of them. I think they're going to be 8-1 heading into their bye week because I think they will cruise past Colorado. Yes, they lost by 25 points last year, but again, bad Utah team that was, unhealthy and just struggling mightily. A Colorado team that had a generational quarterback in Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter now loses all that talent. They return at home, redemption, I guess, after a loss. And Kyle Whittingham's going to have this team still ready to go. And I think they'll cruise past Cincinnati as well. The home field advantage once again play a role here. Cincinnati, better than their record showed last year, will be solid again this year. But I don't think they have the mental toughness, the aggressiveness, the coaching ability to come on the road and win a game like this. So they're 8-1 heading into their bye week, and what a tough final 3 games for the Utes. They're looking good. Everybody's talking about them as a Big 12 title contender, maybe a playoff team, but you got 3 more games left to play, and it's on the road at Baylor, a home game against a good Kansas State team, and then on the road at Kansas. And as we know, Kansas should be better this year than they were last year, and even last year when they were struggling, they pulled off 3 straight ranked wins that completely changed the course of the Big 12 standings. So do not sleep on the Jayhawks. Start on the road at Baylor. Utah currently has the Bears number, right? They won 23-12 last year in Salt Lake City. They went to Waco the year prior and won 20-13. But I could argue in this game that Baylor actually owns the offensive edge. Sawyer Robertson, I think, is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Not nearly as mobile as Devin Dampier, but one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He returns his top 2 wide receivers, his top 2 rushers. 8 starters back on defense. This is the Bears team that is a Big 12 title contender. Won their last 6 regular season games this year. Got hot when it mattered the most. And Dave Aranda's got himself a squad this year. Yes, Utah is coming off a week of rest. That's huge. But similar to that BYU game, I think Aranda, the great defensive-minded coach, finds a way to contain Dampier. Baylor owns home field advantage. They own the offensive advantage. And the defense could hang with Utah. I'm going to give the Bears the win here, meaning the pressure's on for the Utes. The Big 12 is just going to beat itself up this year. Time and time again, you're going to see all these elite teams just beat up on each other. That's what's going to happen. They're just going to cannibalize each other. And that's kind of what we're seeing now. Utah at 8-2 needs to find a way to win their next 2 to have a shot at a Big 12 championship, and it could come down to some wild tie-breaking scenarios. They host Kansas State on November 22nd, and I think this is going to be a really, really close game. But the difference to me in this game is Utah's rushing defense. The Utes always are stout against the run. Last year was actually one of the worst years they've had against the run, and they only gave up 129 rushing yards per game. So, it's actually kind of the opposite of what I've said for some of these losses for the Utes. Avery Johnson's a very good quarterback for Kansas State, and I think he takes a pretty big step forward in year 2 as a starter, right? I do believe that. But I am concerned about his ability to solely win a game through the air. This Kansas State team needs to be able to run the football. Johnson needs to be able to run the football. They averaged over 200 rushing yards per game last year. So what's going to give? Does Kansas State still have their way on the ground, or does Utah shut it down? I lean to say Utah shuts it down, especially at home on Senior Day. So if Avery Johnson's forced to solely win the game through the air, can he do it? I say no. Utah's defense does their job. They get the win. They're 9-2, and they go on the road to Kansas in a big trap game that could completely derail Utah's season, could, again, change the course of the Big 12 standings and the playoff race and everything like that, but I don't think the Jayhawks get to do it again. I know last year they kind of did that against BYU and Colorado and guys like that. I don't think it happens now. The Jayhawks' biggest concern right now is their secondary, and this actually could be a game where Dampier, with his new core of wide receivers, and again, I think he is going to improve as a passer, has a big day. Kansas is going to have to respect the pass because their secondary is not that good, and they're going to have to find a way to shut Dampier down on the ground. I don't think they can do that. Utah's defense, still way better than Kansas. They overcome this game on the road, and the Utes, after going 5-7 last year, just 8-5 the year before, gets back to the double-digit win season, 10-2, and could very well find themselves in the Big 12 championship for the first time. That's how good I believe this team can be. Kyle Whittingham's still a phenomenal coach. Morgan Scalley's still a phenomenal coach. Devin Dampier gives them an extra element at quarterback that they haven't had these last few years. They've got really good wide receivers. The trenches are insane. So again, you've got to win the battle at the line of scrimmage. I think Utah can win the battle at the line of scrimmage just about every game that they play. I've got the Utes at 10-2. Whether or not that's good enough to get to the Big 12 championship, you'll find out tomorrow in our Big 12 conference recap. But overall, a huge bounce-back season for the Utes as they return to the form that we've been used to seeing for many years under Kyle Whittingham. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to our expert picks, home to our weekly newsletters. Tons of exclusive content there to help you get through this offseason. You do not want to miss out on it. The link for it down in the description below. Become a member of our GE Nation. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.